ESET Digital Security. Progress protected.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ronald Gange, and I'm the Senior Pre-Sales Engineer for ESET in Australia. And today, our topic for this webinar is Understanding and Mitigating Cyber Risk for 2023. I started in IT now about 25 years ago, and 23 of those years are within IT security and cybersecurity. But my love affair with computers actually started at the age of 10. So 35 years ago, it started with playing games on my 8086 XT computer, B-Ball, Dig Dug, Joust, Decathlon, Karateka, if people remember those things. I'm showing my age. But these were on green screen computers. And then there was King's Quest 3 and Prince of Persia. But around the age of 11, I really started getting into computers because I started sharing games with my friends and schoolmates on floppy drives. And after I started doing this, I started getting PC viruses. At that time, I didn't know so much about those then. But as soon as my computer started breaking, I had to learn to fix them. So back then, when you got a virus, it means hours of writing tools to get rid of it, sometimes having to reformat your hard drive and reinstall DOS at that stage, and then Windows, right? And so I got so good at rebuilding computers and reinstalling them that after a while, I started charging friends and family members to recover from viruses. And at that stage, I charged between $50 to $200, and this was really awesome pocket money for a 13-year-old. And but since then, malware and viruses, as well as different types of advanced attacks, have changed. It's now become into a billion-dollar industry, and because it has been so successful, what has happened is that the threat actors have outpaced those who try to protect against those threats. So today, what we're really going to be talking about is understanding the current threat landscape, what that means for businesses, what cyber risk is, and how to be able to mitigate and also to be able to solve for some of those business problems. Because really, at the end of the day, cyber risk isn't an IT problem, it's a business problem. So we've got quite a few people who've joined us today, and I think it's because this is important for all of us. Many of us are partners of ESET, and we're in this industry where we're able to work and support businesses to be able to protect themselves against these kind of threats. And in any battle, knowledge is power. So in The Art of War, Sun Tzu said, if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. And if you know yourself, but not the enemy, for every victory you gain, you'll also have a loss. Now, if you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle. And so what we're hoping today is to be able to share some insights, some knowledge, and some information that will help us to tip the balance over to the side of the good guys, as we know that that's always a continuing battle, and every day new types of threats arise, and we need to keep ourselves updated and informed. So thank you so much for joining us. And I hope that this will be helpful for you and also for your customers. Okay, what we're really trying to do is to protect companies to be able to mitigate under cyber risks. Those are operational, financial, and reputational loss. So the objective for this webinar are: 1, is to understand the current threat landscape. 2 is to discuss cyber risks and the problems to be solved. 3, we're going to explore cyber risk frameworks and also some of the other initiatives and the other types of controls that can be put in place to allow businesses to respond to cyber threats. We're going to be talking about ESET and what ESET can do to help with that, and also discuss some other actionable and practical solutions to be able to solve for the problems posed by these cyber threats. Okay, some of the people who arrived early today had already started with the webinar poll. On the chat, on our Teams chat, if everyone can go there, please. This is only going to take less than a minute. If you please find the link to the webinar poll that we posted earlier and answer those questions, we're going to be able to have a look further into where people are in terms of their companies and also their customers and what they're trying to protect and also what their objectives are. So if people can just please do that, we'll give another 1 minute for people to answer this poll, and then we're going to go straight into the results of the poll. You should have the Jeopardy sound in the background going, but I think here you go. Please reach out on the chat if you are having difficulty with accessing the poll, and someone will be able to help you. Okay, now we're going to go on and we're going to check to see the results of the poll. Just let me see.
They can't see the link.
Okay, you can't see the link. Okay, James has just pasted the link, and let's give 1 more minute. Let's allow 1 more minute. Thank you, James, for repasting the link. Thanks, Ross. The URL is there. Hopefully you can see it. Excellent. Thank you, James. Okay, 1 more minute. We'll start at 1:40 and we'll have a look at the answers to this poll. Okay, Mr. James Shim, if you can please kindly publish the answers and send that through to me, and I can show that on the screen. Thank you. So James, if you can collate the answers and send it through, that would be great. Just give us 30 seconds. We'll pull that up on the screen and let's have a look at the answers so far. Excellent. For those who just joined us, we're just currently going through a survey. There's a link on the chat that goes to a survey of some questions regarding today's topic. To see if I can get those results up. Right, the results have come in. All right. Excellent. Okay. No. No. Okay, in terms of what are the key drivers for your organization with regards to cyber risk initiatives, and the biggest answers we have so far are the prevention of data breaches, and secondly, all of the above. Great, excellent. And that's 33%. or prevention of data breaches, and 61.90% for all of the above. Excellent. So what we can see here is that with regards to the current requirements, the most important thing, of course, is the prevention of data breaches, because those are the ones that are most related to the kind of costs that you have for the company. And secondly is that all of the above, because the other things are also important in terms of compliance with regulations, as well as obtaining cyber insurance. But this kind of shows you the primacy of the need still to prevent data breaches as the #1 concern. Okay, interesting. All right, which of the following standards frameworks are most relevant to your organization? And there's a clear winner. We have ACSC's Essential 8, and that's 62.5%, which is great because that's going to be what we're going to be focusing on today in terms of coverage of frameworks, and also ISO 27001. So we find that internationally, ISO 27001 is the most respected or popular framework and standard that people adhere to. And here in Australia, with the push of the government in terms of cybersecurity preparedness, the Essential 8 is of great importance. Do you currently monitor your third-party vendors' cybersecurity posture? To tell you the truth, this is a pretty good, even though there are more no's than yes, I think this is quite realistic, but 42% of companies monitoring their third parties and vendors' security postures, that's a good sign, because in the past it would have been much less than that. Now, thank you so much for participating in this survey. This gives us a bit to go on with in terms of the rest of our webinar. So what we'll do is we'll just jump back in. Okay, so we're talking about the current threat landscape here in Australia, and we all know about the breaches, the major breaches that have happened in the last 2 years. So that's Medibank, Optus, and also Latitude. And just for an understanding of the magnitude of those breaches, so the data breach in 2022 of Optus has cost $4 million in government fines, $140 million in cybercrime-related expenses in terms of recovery, and tens of thousands of customers' data, and possibly billions of dollars in class action lawsuits coming from that. Just recently, Latitude has calculated its losses just this month to $76 million for their data breach. And because of that, the average cost of a data breach here in Australia is up by 32% this year to $4.03 million. And this is a study that everyone knows that's been done by the Ponemon Institute with IBM. Okay, so let's take a step back from those breaches and have a look at the overall Australian current threat landscape. So what we've known for a while is that ransomware is still prevalent and is here to stay. Although it did go down in the last year and a half at the end of COVID and during COVID, due to different factors and different type of threats that have appeared, ransomware is still growing, and there's an increase in targeted attacks. So this is because threat actors are motivated now primarily by financial gain. While in the past they have been trying to get notoriety, now they're getting rewarded for being able to launch ransomware attacks and for being able to exfiltrate data and being able to ransom that threat. So what threat actors do right now is they profile their victims, they obtain the credentials which are available on the dark web, and they're able to target those addresses and those credentials using once they've got it in, they're able to launch phishing attacks from outside, and once they've been able to get in and escalate their privileges, they're able to launch ransomware attacks and exfiltrate data. So this thing is not going to go away, especially since COVID has changed the nature of work. Hybrid work environments have added new challenges, And nowadays, you can't just say, I'm protected by a next-gen firewall, so I'm safe for those kind of threats. Now, the actual perimeter of the organization has moved out to the peripheries, to people working from home. And so the endpoints are themselves the battlegrounds. And we don't have, or companies don't have as great control over their workers' home environment as they do the office environment. And so there's a few different types of risks that have arisen from that. And so because of that, we also need to be able to respond to those threats. Now, because of the great uplift in cyber insurance claims, cyber insurers have gotten smart. And in the past, cyber insurance was given as a also had or something for free. So if you get business insurance, it's like, would you like fries with that? Would you like cyber insurance too? And people would just tick that and they can get it almost for free. But now cyber insurance is no longer a given. And it really depends on the company's security posture. So if your company or your customer's company was wanting to obtain cyber insurance, one is that they need to prove that they're able to maintain a certain level of security controls within the organization so that the cyber insurance won't deem them an unacceptable risk. Lately, the government has also stepped up its focus on cybersecurity. So the Honourable Claire O'Neill is now, a face that everyone knows, and she talks about cybersecurity initiatives of the government and also raises awareness with regards to the kind of risks. And the ACSC has put out their recommendations based on the threats that are affecting Australian businesses, or the majority of Australian businesses. And that's where we have Essential 8 from. As mentioned earlier, compromised credentials are always for sale on the dark web. So whenever there's a breach and whenever credentials are breached, expect those credentials to be sold on the dark web. And those can be used to attack companies and access corporate assets. The last thing that we're affected by is that global conflict has also changed the nature of cyber threats. So nowadays, state actors are actively seeking to gain an advantage against countries which they're against. And cyber warfare has really moved out into the open. And so I think most recently, on my next slide, in the US, IBM's MoveIt data transfer servers were breached by a Russian-based ATP called CLOP. And many large organizations, including departments of education and health, as well as large government contractors, have been compromised. And because of that, hundreds of companies and tens of millions of individuals' data have been breached and have been compromised, and more are still coming to light. So, just taking a breath from the cyber threat landscape, what does that mean for companies? That means that for these companies, for all organizations, there is a heightened risk of different types of cyber threats. So today what we're talking about is elevating the discussion to be talking about risk, because sometimes when we talk about cybersecurity, it's a very technical thing. And that only goes so far, because at the end of the day, the decision makers, management, as well as board of directors, what the language that they talk about is, what is the business risk to my company? What does it mean in dollars and cents? And nowadays, there's been a greater focus on increasing the responsibility as well as the accountability of, top-level management, directors, and C-level executives to be responsible for the breaches in their organizations. So if they're shown to have not done enough to put controls into place, then they may find themselves liable to some of those losses. So cyber risk means any risk of financial loss, disruption, or damage to the reputation of an organization from some sort of failure in its IT. And again, cyber risk is not purely a technology or IT problem. It's a holistic business problem. A friend of mine on LinkedIn released this way of looking at cyber risk. And this is the the bar fight taxonomy of cyber risk. And so just to have a look at it, what is a threat actor? A threat actor in a bar fight is someone who wants to punch you in the face. The threat is the punch being thrown. The vulnerability is your inability to defend against that punch. Maybe you're facing the wrong direction, or maybe you have, you have slow reflexes. And the risk is the likelihood of getting punched in the face and what that means to you. Okay, and so the risk equation, maybe many of you have seen this in different ways in the past, but the risk equals the impact times likelihood. I'm being repetitive here, but cyber risk is about a business problem and it usually translates into dollars. So it means that this risk needs to be financially quantified. So cyber risk equals the threat times the vulnerability times the value of information. So our job to be able to reduce the cyber risk is either to be able to eliminate or reduce threats, patch up vulnerabilities, or put initiatives to protect more valuable information and systems. So to be able to prioritize the more valuable systems. Okay, so what is the problem right now in terms of cyber risk? So cybersecurity efforts are often not aligned to needs. So companies have limited budgets and often only apply remediations reactively. And that means that sometimes they're just relying on popular brands, but not actually covering the actual risks that their company face. Directors have a lack of understanding of cyber risks. So one, either they feel that they're not, their company doesn't really have a lot of risks, and so there's a bit of denial or putting their heads in the sand, or two, they're overwhelmed and the problem is too big and they don't know where to start. Understanding these things allow us to be able to consult to these companies and provide solutions. So the third problem is companies don't review their own cybersecurity posture or don't understand it, and that of their third parties. So things like MoveIt is an example of a third party being breached and it affecting those who rely on its services. The problem with that is that you can do a penetration test against your own network, against your own organization, but you can't really do it against a third party because there are some inherent problems there. You don't own their networks. You can take them down. You can be seen as an attacker when you try to do that. But there's also some solutions to these, which we'll go through. And the fourth problem is that cyber insurance is becoming increasingly difficult to acquire, and also the premiums are rising. So now that we've had a look at the problems, let's have a look at some of the solutions to those. So how do we improve our cyber risk posture or lower our risk? So one is to conduct cyber risk assessments to understand and to quantify the risks to the organization. So if we can understand our threat surface, if we can understand our most important assets and the value of that data, if we can know the vulnerabilities within our organization and be able to calculate that risk and what that means financially and quantify that financially, then we're able to put or focus our remediations as well as focus our efforts in cybersecurity in the right places. And by doing that, we're able to implement a cyber risk strategy to mitigate, to transfer, or where you can't do those things, to be able to accept known risks, but to know what the level of risk that is. And thirdly, we need to align or adopt with an appropriate framework. And the cybersecurity or cyber risk frameworks nowadays, we've gone through multiple of those. It really depends as to what is relevant to your organization based on its size, also based on your requirements and the reasons for having it. Now, when we put these strategies in place, it's just not a one point in time analysis that we do and that's it. There needs to be a continual improvement and monitoring of the risk posture, and also that's the internal risk posture, and also to look at assessing third-party third-party risk of your vendors as well. And you can use different systems to be able to do that. So if you think about it, there are ways of, while you can't do a penetration test on different organizations, there are now companies that collect and boil down all the data in the internet and are able to understand the risk posture of all the organizations that have a digital footprint. So you're thinking about companies like Security Scorecard, UpGuard, BitSight, Risk Recon, and you can undertake these companies to be able to have a view of your vendors and see how you can lower your third-party risk. And having these strategies and these controls in place allows you to prove to cyber insurance vendors that you're doing your part. And this allows you to obtain a discount on your premiums, as well as to be able to, of course, qualify to be able to get cyber insurance. All right, just moving towards what the things that we've talked about are in terms of cybersecurity framework. It's a series of a system of standards, guidelines, and best practices to be able to manage common and known risks. So typically, they might match the different security objectives based on the risks, like avoiding unauthorized system access and authentication controls. So requiring a username and password, although we know that that's not enough anymore. Okay, and some well-known frameworks include NIST CSF, ISO 27001, if you collect credit card data, PCI DSS, SOC 2 for health information, HIPAA, for privacy, especially in Europe, GDPR, and in Australia in general, Essential 8 is the big one. So for the purpose of this webinar, we're going to be focusing now on Essential 8. And so what is Essential 8? Essential 8 is a maturity model for a set of standards that standard recommendations that are made by the ACSC based on the most prevalent threats. So initially there were 37 strategies, and they boiled that down to the most essential ones that caused the breaches, which is the Essential 8. And so very quickly, looking at what that looks like is that these are the 8. So we can divide them into 3. One objective is to prevent cyber attacks. 2 is to limit the impact of the breaches. And 3 is to maintain data availability. And that looks at these different areas of control. So application controls, patch applications, configure Microsoft Office macros, etc. I won't go through all of those here now, but you're probably familiar with these. If not, we have a white paper the ESET has released that talks about the Essential 8 and also how we're able to cover off against those. And the thing with Essential 8 is it's quite prescriptive in what it wants you to be able to do. And based on those prescriptions, you're able to assess your maturity in being able to mitigate those risks. And there's no silver bullet. There's no one product that you buy that ticks off all the boxes of Essential 8. But what each control or each product or each security feature does is enables you to tick off that you've covered these specific risks. And for ESET, we have a matrix of what we're able to cover against the different packages that we have. And as you're probably familiar with ESET, ESET is quite modular in terms of our subscription. You're able to start from the most very basic, so our entry-level products, ESET Protect Complete, ESET Protect Enterprise, and ESET Protect Elite. And with ESET Protect Elite, we're able to cover off 6 out of the 8 of those Essential 8. Again, this doesn't say once you have this product, you're compliant with all of these. It says that we're able to help you to be able to align to these objectives and to be able to tick off those different areas. Cool. And so this is probably a deeper look at what's included within each of those packages. And so our entry, our advanced, our complete, and elite. And as you can see, with each of the different levels or tiers of subscription, we're able to add additional control areas and additional technologies that protect different risk vectors. So with Elite, which is probably for Essential 8, is our hero product. You don't just have top-level endpoint security and server security. You also have advanced threat defense against zero-day threats. You have full disk encryption for privacy. You have mail security. We also protect over the cloud applications like Microsoft Office 365, as well as now against Google Workspace Cloud as well. ESET has also added a new feature which we'll be covering. So please stay until the end of this webinar because we've got some exciting announcement of new developments within ESET. But one of those is that we now have vulnerability and patch management built into ESET Protect Cloud for ESET Protect Complete, Elite, and upwards. So besides that, ESET Protect or Elite also ticks one of the big boxes for obtaining, cyber insurance, which is, do you have an EDR system? So we have ESET Inspect that provides top-level detection and response for those advanced level threats, as well as ESET Secure Authentication that allows you to put multiple factor authentication, MFA or 2FA, in different areas within your organization, including logging onto Windows and logging onto RDP, because we know that usernames and passwords are no longer really secure. Okay, just going to paste the second link to a link to our second survey. Just a second. So we're going to do another survey, and I've just pasted that through. Vlados asks, is EDR and MDR available in Australia? Yes, we do. So EDR, our EDR component is ESET Inspect, and MDR is covered through two of our partners in Australia who provide managed services over that EDR portion as well as provide other security services. Okay, so if people can please log on, and we'll take 3 minutes now just to answer this survey. Let us know if you can't access the survey. We'll take another 2 minutes just to complete this survey. Thanks, Jessica. Yes, I realized I was talking to myself for a while. Yes, Vlado, if you'd like to talk about MDR, Andrew's your man. Okay, James, if I can ask you please to do the magic thingy and collate our answers and send me a link, and I'll display our results. We're heading now to nearly to the end of our webinar in terms of the information, but we will have time for questions and answers after this. And also please stick around for the next segment which is to talk about what's new with ESET. Okay, just going through some of the questions and the answers that we have. Is your organization protected against zero-day malware? Don't know is quite a big percentage, and yes, and some no's. It's good that we have bigger yeses. Now, the answer for this is that if you have ESET Protect Advanced or above, so if you've upgraded from entry to advanced, anything above that, so advanced, complete, and elite, as well as, of course, the MDR or the managed services, you're protected against zero-day malware. And we are able to do that using ESET's LiveGuard advanced threat protection. So what it does is we're able to prevent any unknown or never detected before malware from running anywhere within your customers' organizations or within your own organization. And we're able to send that through to our cloud sandbox analysis server and go through 3 different layers of scanning, as well as detonating the payload of that malware, if it is malware, and to be able to observe the behavior of the malware. And by doing this, we're able to, within a minute's time or a couple of minutes at the most, you're able to get a result to see whether that never before detected executable or that that executable is legitimate, or if it is indeed malware. So that's the answer to that question. Now, this is for this reason, we've been able to elevate most of our discussions with renewing customers this year to move from entry to advanced. So if you yourself are a reseller of ESET or an MSP, this is a very important discussion to be able to have. And customers generally understand the nature and the changes to these threats. So this is a very easy upgrade to have. Okay, next one. Okay, do you have capability of protecting against advanced attacks? Okay, again, the prevalent answers are yes and don't know. So in terms of advanced attacks, ESET, the software itself, has multiple layers of protection and are able to protect against different advanced attacks. But for companies that need to obtain cyber insurance, one of the big areas and one of the big questions that is asked for is, do you have endpoint detection and response to be able to respond to advanced threats? And with ESET, ESET Protect Elite, you're able to do this, and also with ESET MDR solutions. Awesome. And do you use 2-factor authentication to secure your Windows logins and RDP? I'm glad to see that a lot of people are saying yes, and that's a pretty good percentage. And so ESET makes it easy to provide 2-factor authentication to secure Windows logins, as well as RDP, VPNs, and different types of online systems as well, using ESET secure authentication. So please do reach out if you are interested in knowing more about ESET secure authentication. And this is also included as a standalone product, as well as a part of our Elite bundle. And so with that, this is a major area that needs to be covered, and one of the areas in Essential 8. Okay, and the last question, is your information security managed in-house or outsourced? Okay, so to a majority, it's still done in-house, and 21% is outsourced. Now, a lot of information security management is still done in-house, and so but also companies that manage that in-house also take on managed service providers in terms of getting that higher level expertise. And so with ESET, we have a few different partners who also provide those services. So if you're an end user and you're looking for that, please don't hesitate to reach out. We're able to connect you and assist you. So that's for those with a 21%. I mean, the ones who are looking for additional expertise or additional assistance. Even if you're managing it in-house, we find that sometimes some of the additional functions, especially when it comes to EDR, is something that many organizations want to also have it as a managed service. Okay, so just gonna come out of this. Thank you so much for participating in this survey. It really helps us to have these discussion points regarding the information. And so for me, I want to have a look again at the current threat landscape and then move towards ESET and what we provide as solutions. So very briefly, ransomware is here to say there's an increase in targeted attacks. Hybrid work environments has changed the game, especially in terms of what the perimeter of the organization is, and also enhances the importance of endpoint security. Not just having a firewall doesn't solve all your cybersecurity problems anymore. Cyber insurance is now harder to get, and you need to be able to prove that you're putting in place different controls, or that you are following best practices, and that you have a way of being able to protect against and detect those advanced threats. Governments are stepping up, their rhetoric with regards to cybersecurity, but also making directors more liable. And so this is an important point of what's happening at the moment in terms of the threat landscape. Compromised credentials are still for sale on the dark web, and increasingly so. And it's being there are a lot of attacks that automate the use of these compromised credentials, especially now with AI. And didn't really talk too much about how AI is enabled to weaponize these kind of compromised credentials. But as you can understand, being able to automate this makes it a lot quicker and easier to be able to attack a larger number of people. And right now, due to global conflicts, there's a heightened cyber threats, especially with state-sponsored threat actors becoming prevalent, and also with the kind of companies that are being attacked. So any company who does dealings with the government, any company who does dealings with organizations that are critical to the critical national infrastructure, they can be attacked because oftentimes threats or attacks come through the third parties. And so with that, that was just a review. What does ESET do, and how does ESET answer the need? Now, with ESET's threat protection, which protects against multiple layers and different threat vectors, you're protected against advanced threats, ransomware, and zero-day malware. So that ticks the ransomware question. ESET secures your endpoint environment as well as cloud-based systems like Office 365 and now Google Workspace. ESET allows you to align with standards such as Essential 8. ESET has partnership with governments worldwide, within Europe, as well as the US with CISA and Australia's ACSC. And ESET protects against compromised credentials by protecting systems with secure authentication. And in the world, ESET has also been in the forefront of protecting some governments in Europe against cyber warfare. So as a vendor what we're really trying to do is trying to adapt to what the current threats are and what the needs are out there. And so very quickly about ESET, we've been in the cybersecurity business for over 30 years, and we remain private and have no debt. So we're not affected by market forces, and we're not also going to get acquired. So we're not going to have the problems that other companies are having this very moment of trying to get sold or are trying to be acquired, which means that we're able to build on our technologies. And we're able to develop them in-house as we have, and we're able to focus on those technologies. We've been growing since inception, and even our original founders are still there. And because of that, we have strong values that have carried through. It's like a huge company now, but it's still very much like a family organization. We're very well known for our cyber threat research, and is very respected, and the largest companies all over the world and Australia use our threat intelligence system. So if that's something that you're looking for, it's something that ESET also provides. Not just within our products, but we also have threat intelligence feeds that feeds into threat intelligence platforms, SIEMs, SOARs, and other different types of things. In terms of our principles, as you can see with independent testing, we always have high levels of detection and protection, low performance impact, and also low false positives. And ESET, as you probably know, is very easy to use. And we also have local support here in Australia. So because of that, we've developed our technologies to be able to address the risks that are prevalent and arising risks as well. And sorry, just and we do it in a very modular way that allows you to have a look at your current risks and match that with the investment on the technologies that you need to protect. Okay, now I'd like to hand over just to our next segment, which is going to be run by Nayan. So Nia, I'll just get you to take over.
That's fine. I'll finish my screen. Right. Thanks, John. Thanks for the wonderful presentation. I hope you can hear me okay. All right. My name is Nan Brumbert, and I work as a pre-sales engineer for ESET Australia. I just want to give you a quick update on the major releases that are happening this year. One of them has been released already. As Ron talked about cyber risk and cyber insurance with ESET and with the release component and the components that are going to be available by end of this year, you are able to tick more boxes in getting your ISO 27001 certificate and comply with Essential 8 framework. If you can move to the next slide. Yeah, sure. All right, so the component that was recently released is vulnerability and patch management. As you may already know now, is available as part of ESET Protect Complete and ESET Protect Elite bundles. It only supports Windows operating system at the moment, but support for additional operating systems such as Mac OS and Linux machines will be added in the coming months. Also, it's available only in ESET Protect Cloud at the moment, but it's going to be available for customers using ESET on-prem as probably by end of next year. Slide. And if you are using ESET Protect Entry, or if you are on ESET Protect Advanced bundle and you want to have this capability or feature, you can simply upgrade to ESET Protect Complete or ESET Protect Elite bundle, and this feature will be activated in your console. And it's very easy to set it up. You just select the workstation that you want to have it on and just enable the feature. And once you have enabled the feature, it's gonna scan for the vulnerabilities on the installed applications in your endpoint, and you will be able to see all those vulnerabilities in your console in ESET Protect. as well as the available patches for those applications that are installed in your network. Now, there are two major releases happening this year. One of them is the integration with Google Workspace, and the second one is ESET multi-factor authentication hosted in our cloud environment. With Google Workspace, users will be able to protect the Gmail as well as G Drive, and it's coming out end of next month in September 2023. And once it's released, you will be able to see Google Workspace option in your ESET Cloud Office Security Console. You will have an option to add your tenant and the domain ID. And once you have entered your domain ID, you will be able to see your mailboxes available under the tenant. And the good thing here is you are able to protect Office 365 as well as Google Workspace users at the same time. And to differentiate between these two, there is a Google Suite symbol added to Google tenant clients, and Microsoft symbol will be added next to the Microsoft 365 tenants. Good news for the existing ESET secure authentication or multi-factor authentication clients. There is a cloud version coming out soon in the Q4 of this year. And users will be able to create live installers for RDP, for Windows login, for web applications such as Exchange Online and SharePoint. And you will have a couple of authentication type options such as mobile application, push authentication, hard tokens, as well as field. I won't go into much details of this product as of now because we plan to host another webinar before its release, and we will go through its capabilities and functionalities in that webinar.
ESET Digital Security. Progress. Protected.